In this chapter, we're going to learn about edge tools. This is chapter 4. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Here's a brief overview that you guys can look at as you're watching the video. And each topic will have a link to the part of the video in case you need to go in and get just a refresher on just what maybe the slide edge tool does. So make sure you go back in and check these this outliner so you can get a table of contents, if you will, for the video. Alright, so I'm going to take this off screen. You can pull this up through the link provided. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with this edge tools lesson. So, like face tools, I'm going to start out by how we can select edges. So I want to start out by creating a cylinder. I'm going to work with a cylinder in this lesson, and throughout the video teaching these tools, I'm going to make a teapot to go with that teacup we made in the last video. So here's my poly cylinder that you see. So how do we select edges? Well, much like faces, there's quite a few ways. The easiest way is to highlight, or I guess you can just right click anywhere in the screen and bring up edge tools. I like to go ahead and select my object and then right click and just select edges, and there we can see all the edges are highlighted. If I click it, I can select it, shift click, inverse, control click, deselect, control shift, additive selection, all the good stuff. So what other ways can we do it? Well, if we bring up my modeling toolkit that you see zoomed in right up there at the top, I have this modeling toolkit window that pops up on the right hand side, and I can select the edges button right here, and then my edges pop up again. I can even, let me go back into object mode, I can even go into my components little icon up here at the top in the shelf right here, and then make sure that edges is selected. So now whenever I select my object, I can get to the edges. And we have another hotkey. I think F10 goes into edge selection mode, and now we can start editing our edges. And just as a quick note, we can grow and shrink our edge selection as well. So I have this edge selected right here. If I hold down shift and press the greater than or less than sign on my keyboard, then I can grow my edge selection exponentially, like so. Alright, that always comes in handy if you keep it on the corner of your mind. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is talk about extruding edges here. And to get started on my teapot, I'm actually going to go into face mode. I'm going to select all my faces. I'm going to hold down Control and drag a box so that just the top and bottom of my cylinder is selected. I'm going to delete these faces so I have this hollow tube right here. So we're going to talk about extruding edges, okay? So if we extrude an edge, something interesting happens. I hold down Shift, right click, and I go down to Extrude Edge. We just get one face made rather than a new face with a supporting, when we extrude a face, we get, 5 faces made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all around. But an edge extrude will just extrude that edge up. I mean, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. All right. So one thing you have to understand though is, if I go into edge mode and double click to select this whole ring of edges, all I did was just double click on an edge loop and it selected all the border edges here. If I extrude the edge, yeah, I get all these edges extruded with me, but yet I still have this gaping hole to deal with. So be careful. Extruding edges doesn't always guarantee that your model won't have any holes afterwards. So that's something you have to take in consideration with extruding edges. It doesn't fix holes that we see here. Another thing about extruding edges, if I just go over on the side of my cylinder and extrude this edge right here and bring it out, we have a big problem. Always, it's not even a rule of thumb, it's just a rule. An edge, this edge right here, cannot have more than 2 faces attached to it. So right now we have 3 faces. We have this one, this one, and this one. That's 3 faces attached to one edge. That's a big no-no. All right? Because, I mean, it creates all kinds of topological errors. So always avoid 3 faces attached to one edge. So why don't we see how we can use our extrude edges tool to kind of start giving shape to my teapot here. First thing I'm going to do is plug up the bottom of my teapot. So I'm going to extrude these edges, and I'm just going to hit my scale tool, R, on the keyboard. I'll press 1 to go back in low poly mode, and I'm just going to bring these faces in like so by controlling this edge loop, just scaling it in and out. And I'm going to leave that hole right there. We'll plug it up a little bit later whenever we learn about some other tools. So already I have a nice bottom to my teapot, and I don't have, let me create another cylinder and I'll show you why I did this. I don't have all of these triangles creating this nasty pole right here. See how all these triangles terminate to this one point? If I go into sub D mode by pressing 3, look how gross and ribbed that is. It looks like I don't know, like a melon or something. Well, I mean, I guess it's an easy way to make a pumpkin, but it's not a good way. It's not a good look for a teapot. So by deleting all of those triangles, like I did at the beginning of the video, I can get away from that. So now if I press 3 on the keyboard to go into sub D mode, I get a nice smooth bottom going on here. Alright, great. So that's extruding edges. I'm going to leave the top for right now. And I'm going to introduce another tool called the Insert Edge Loop tool. Alright. The easiest way to get the Insert Edge Loop tool, I think you can find it in Mesh Tools. Where is it? Insert Edge Loop tool. But that's too many clicks. The Insert Edge Loop tool and then click. I like using my keyboard shortcuts, so that's how I'm going to teach it. With my model selected, and I'm in object mode right now, I'm going to hold down Shift and right click, and with this radial menu I'm just going to select Insert Edge Loop tool right next to Extrude. Alright, so now I have this message say click and drag on edges, and my arrow looks a little bit differently. So if I click on an edge, look what happens. I get this loop drawn all the way around my teapot. So if I place one right in the center there, now I have some more geometry to work with. And notice how I still have my edge loop, newly made edge loop selected. That gives me direct control to go to the scale tool and scale this out. So now we're getting a more of a spherical shape. If I press 3 on the keyboard, that's already starting to look like a teapot. I'm getting that round kettle look right there. Alright. And it's always good to bring up a reference image. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the reference image that I'm going to be modeling on. So that's the kind of shape I'm going to go for. And you can already see I'm kind of getting the spherical shape here. But I feel like I can add a few more edge loops to the main body of it to really get that kind of squat, you know, not quite oblong look, but it's more squat. It's not a perfect sphere. So I'm just going to keep adding some more edge loops. So I'll press 1 again and go back into low poly mode. And I'll insert another edge loop. And I'm going to be giving us some sneak peeks into subdivision modeling. So I'm going to press 3 on my keyboard. And we can already see I have my nice smoothed out teapot right there. And I even have the wireframe of the low poly drawn around it. And this gives me a direct preview of how positioning this edge loop, scaling this edge loop out, will look in sub D mode or subdivision modeling mode by pressing 3 on the keyboard. I'm going to add one more to the bottom here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead, and now I've got a nice shape that more closely matches my teapot here. Alright, great. So why don't I go ahead and use a combination of edge loops and extrude edge to give this little lip at the top of my teapot here. So to do that, I'm just going to select the top of my teapot here, double click this edge loop here to select all the edges around my teapot, and I'm going to shift right click extrude edge, And I'm just going to use my simple transform tools by pressing R on the keyboard to bring up the scale tool. Go into sub D mode so I can see exactly what I'm doing here. And I'm just kind of creating a little bit more height here. And there we go. Alright. So I need to get this kind of lip coming up. So I'm just going to keep extruding edges. And we're going to make that. You can already see I'm kind of getting that upward tilt right here. But it kind of goes outwards. It goes in, then out. So let's make that happen. So I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard and go to low poly mode so I can see exactly the larger shapes that I'm working with. There we go. I'm kind of getting that shape now. I'm going to extrude edge one more time and bring it straight up. Alright. There we go. I'm getting that top little lip. Alright. I'm just going between 1 and 3 to get a better idea of what I'm modeling with. I'm going to extrude one more time. Notice how I haven't deselected this edge loop yet. And I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to give it that thickness on that lip. I'm going to extrude one more time. Hit W to bring up my move tool. And I'm just going to bring it down like so. And there we go. I've got that, I've already brought it. I got that nice little detail you saw in the cover picture. But I have this big gaping hole. So I'm going to do one more extrusion. And I'm just going to kind of scale it out and in so it kind of terminates back inwards on the teapot here. Alright, this shape's looking pretty good, but I feel like I could add a few more edge loops to really define the sharpness of this very top of the lip right here. Look what happens whenever we use edge loops and pressing 3 on our keyboard to go into sub D mode. If I add another little edge loop right below this little curvy part here, can't see what happened there, but I have more detail now. I want to do that. And see how it's kind of just really kind of flowy. There's not much of a hard lip there. Well, inserting an edge loop right there, boom, it gives it that sharpness that we're looking for. So the top of my teapot's already looking really good. But I have a problem. I have this huge hole there. I need to make the top of my teapot. Yeah, I guess I could make a brand new cylinder and start from scratch, but I'm going to break the rules. And I'm going to select this edge loop. Let me get to it. Press F and I can see a little bit better. Oh, look what we're doing. Whenever we were modeling in one mode, we're getting some clipping faces going on here. See how there's a black ring there? So I'm going to rein that back in. I'm going to select this open edge loop right here, border edge, and I'm just going to kind of scale it back in. And I'm going to select the top one here, and I'm going to scale this back in. And now we don't have any clipping faces. So keep that in mind when you're modeling. You don't want to really see too many clipping faces, you know, faces that go through each other. So with that fixed, I'm going to double click this edge loop right here, and I'm going to extrude in. And of course, you might be saying, well, Patrick, you just made an edge loop that, I mean, you just extruded edges and now there's three faces attached to this edge loop here. Well, that's because I'm going to extract these faces here. And here's a little trick for selecting a selection trick. Notice how I have this inner little edge border loop selected. If I hold down Control, we're used to holding down Shift and getting this menu, but if I hold down Control and go to Faces, it takes whatever edges I have selected and selects all the faces that were connected to that edge loop. Pretty slick trick. I'll do it again for you, and I'll start from scratch. So I'm in edge mode. I double click. I take special care just to select this inside edge loop. I double click it. I hold down Control. Notice how you see the minus sign for negative selection. But now I'm going to right click and see how it says to faces. I'm going to change my selection to faces, and then I'm just going to go to faces. And there we go. Those are all my faces selected. Now I can go to mesh, and I can do, where is this extract, guys? Edit mesh. Mesh tools. All the way down at the bottom of edit mesh and extract. So what I've basically done is I've got the exact dimensions of the lid here. I didn't have to start from scratch by making a new cylinder or a new box or a new sphere. And now I don't have 3 faces connected to that inner edge loop. And I'm going to press modify, center pivot, and now I have a top ready for the edges to be extruded. So I'm going to select this outside edge loop, and I'm going to extrude downwards, maybe scale it out, extrude one more time. If I press 3 on the keyboard, now I can see I have a perfect little top. I'm going to scale it up just a little bit so it sits, maybe bring it up, so it sits right on top. There we go. One more detail we have to add is that little knob at the top. So I'm going to select this inside edge loop right here. I'm going to scale it out a little bit. My knob, I want my little knob thing to be bigger. And I'm just going to extrude these edges to make that little circular knob on the top. It's just an extrusion dance. Extrude, move up, scale a little bit. Extrude, move up, scale in. Oops, scale in even more. Extrude, bring up, scale even more. And there I'm getting that knob that I like. That's shown, and I'm just going to leave it open for now. That looks pretty good. And I can even go in and with 3 selected, I can even shove these edges around to make it as spherical as I want it to be. And you know what? I'm going to add another little edge loop right here. Cut it in, make it even more detailed. Add that nice little hard edge. All I did was add another little edge loop there. And there's the top of my teapot right there. Not too bad. Alright, so here's the biggest workhorse of the edge loops. And that is our multi-cut tool. Multi-cut tool has a lot of versatility to it. So how do you get to it? Well, I'm going to select my teapot, and the fastest way I can see to get to it right now is by bringing up my modeling toolkit and go into multi-cut, and there we go. Now we have this weird tool. I'm snapping to all these different verts, all these different edges, and it's like I have this orange line being drawn for me. All right, that's one way to get to it. I'm going to select it again, hold shift, right click, and there's my extrude, there's my edge loop tool, and there's multi-cut. So you can see 2 big players right here, and now we have our 3rd big player, multi-cut, and that's another way to get to it. I do believe Mesh Tools has multi-cut right there as well. Alright, so multi-cut, what does it do? Well, before I get started, over here on my tool, vertical toolbar right here, we have a last tool used, which is multi-cut. If I double click it, I bring up the side menu that has a multi-cut, the multi-cut menu on the side here. And it has a few interesting options. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand my keyboard mouse shortcuts, because depending on what you click and which control or shift modifiers you click, it does a bunch of different things here. So I'm going to take a second to talk about all the different ways we can use the multi-cut tool here. Before I mess this model up, I'm going to save my scene. I'm just going to save it right on the desktop. Call this Teapot 001. And before I start messing this teapot up, I'm going to make a duplicate of it, and I'm going to give it, put it on my duplicate layer that I already made. Now I know I have a duplicate in the wings. If I mess this model up too bad, I can just delete it and bring up the duplicate I just made. Alright, so multi-cut. I'm going to shift, right click, multi-cut, and here we go. Alright, our snap step kind of determines exactly how much it snaps to different edges and whatnot. Not too much big of a deal. I usually just leave it at 1. Our smoothing angle determines when we make these new edges, it determines the normal we'll get into normals in a second, edge normals in a second. So I'll go back to smoothing angle in a second. Subdivisions basically says how many different verts are put on each of these edges we're about to make. You know what? Let's not worry too much about these options right now, and let's just start clicking things. All right, so I'm going to click on a random edge here. Notice how that's red. There's one little click, and you can see I have a blue little point here. Now I can either click on this next edge here. Oh, what's going on here? It's like I can, if I press middle mouse button, I can move the last point I made. Alright. I don't like that point, so I'm going to hit the backspace, and it undoes that the last point I made, because I want to go directly on this edge here. Notice how I'm going up and down on this edge, so I'll release the left mouse button. And I can even click in the middle of a face here, and there's another little edge drawn. And here's another little interesting tool, or tidbit. I can skip that edge and go all the way over here and release. And look, it makes a new edge. It creates all these edges intersecting all of these vertical lines here. And I can just go around the whole model here, creating my own custom edge loop by skipping things. I can even maybe come down here. Alright, and I've gone all the way around my model, and I'm facing my original point here. And you can even go back with middle mouse button and edit these points that you made. I mean, it's just a really versatile tool here. We have complete control of how we want to make edges. And if I click on this little point here that I made on this vertical edge and move it, look, it's creating a brand new point right here, a brand new vertex that's going to be made right there. So when I'm happy with the results, this is my current edge, or my current point that I just made, my edge point. If I hover over the original point, you can see I have a close symbol right here. I click it. But we're not done yet. We can go back and we can preview. We can even use middle mouse button to just move this edge anywhere we want it. And it's only made official when I press enter on the keyboard. And now we have this really funky edge loop. But we have a few issues here. We got all these random verts just hanging around here. We've created a bunch of n-gons. Alright? So while playing around and showing you that tool, I've created some really bad topology, some really bad edge flow. Alright? So that's not what we want. Okay. Well, how are we going to fix this? Well, I could go back and, I don't know, rely on the duplicate I made, but I'm going to show you another powerful tool with edges. I mean, yeah, I've selected this edge. I'll just hit the delete key. That's getting it, right? Perfect. It's pretty much gone. Well, it's kind of weird. I can't select every single one of them, but it's doing the job for the most part. I'm just hitting delete on the keyboard, and everything's great, right? No more edge. Well, I'm going to go into vertex mode. Look at all these random verts just sitting around. That's terrible. Even though there's no edges connected to them, we still have an n-gon right here. And notice how our line, when in sub D mode, notice how it's still wavy and all weird looking. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to bring back that terrible edge loop I made with the multi-cut tool. And I'm going to show you the preferred way of deleting edges, okay? So I'm going to select this edge loop, and there's a specific tool for deleting edges. While I have my edge selected, I'm going to hold down Shift and right click, and we even have a delete edge tool made just for us. Not only does it delete the edges, but it also gets rid of those extra verts we didn't want. Alright, so let's just do it again. Delete edge, and look how clean our model's turning again. Delete edge, and you know what? We probably still have some random verts here. So I'm just going to delete those by hand. And now we're back at square one. So that's a multi-cut tool in its basic nature, just playing around with it, showing you guys some cool things that it can do. So let's start talking about how we can use it practically. All right. So I'm going to go back in, hold Shift, right click, go back into my multi-cut tool. What I want to do now is I want to get started making my spout here. But to do that, I'm going to have to extrude some of these faces or extrude some of these edges. But I don't want to just extrude like a big old block of faces. I kind of want to have a circular set of edges to extrude. And I could come in with my multi-cut tool and just draw it out. But look how uneven that is. Not very good, not very symmetrical, not very beautiful. Alright, well I'm going to show you how we can slice or cut directly into our model. It's called a slice effect. So to do that, I'm going to pop out of my perspective mode and go into, let's say, front view right here. And with I'm still in my multi-cut tool. Let me make sure I am. Oh, that's edge loop tool. There we go. And now I'm going to show you guys how we can slice into our tea kettle. Alright, so if we just click out an empty space with my multi-cut tool, I get this orange line here. What does that do? Oh, did I just I just made a slice of an edge right there. And look, it weirdly took on the contour. Middle mouse click, slice again. Depending on where my camera's at, I'm just slicing this thing up. Oh my god, look at that topology. Terrible. Alright, so how is that tool going to be remotely useful here? Alright, well, I'm going to use it to slice downwards here. And because of my spherical shape, it's going to create a nice, somewhat circular and symmetrical set of edges that I can extrude out from. But to do this, I want to make sure that I have a nice enough shape. I want this middle edge to really poke out like so. There we go. Because I'm going to slice right down the top here. So with multi-cut selected, I'm going to hit middle mouse button, and I'm just going to slice down. See what happens. Wow, I mean, it's a little bit of a diamond shape, but I mean, it's still kind of circular and it's still symmetrical. But I don't exactly like the positioning of it. So here's where our snap step comes into effect. If I take this up to about 90, if I hold middle mouse button, see how I can just go in any direction? If I hold down the shift key now, I can only slice in 90-degree directions. So now we get something kind of like that. But that was a little too small. And I don't like 90 degrees. I'm going to do something like 45. Now I can slice on an angle if I need to. Great. I want to slice a little bit more over here. And boom. That seems like a little bit better of a hole that I can extrude my spout off of. So that's our slice tool at work with our, I'll show it one more time and show you exactly what I'm doing. I'm in a multi-cut tool. You can tell by the knife icon I have. I'll hold down the middle mouse button and blank space over here outside of my teapot. I kind of line it up exactly how thick I want my hole to be. I start drawing this orange line, and then I'm going to press the shift key here. I don't like that slice, so I undid it. I'm going down shift so I can just slice completely vertically down. And because I was in front view, I get this nice little hole right here. Alright, so I'm going to select these faces here, and I'm going to delete them. This is where my spout's going to be. Alright, great. Well, now we have n-gons. I'll fix those in a second. I'm also going to make a little handle that comes off the back here. And what's going on right here? I got an extra little vertex just hanging out. Got rid of it. There we go. I'm just going to focus on making my spout right now. I'm not going to worry about end guns. We'll use the multi-cut tool a little bit later to fix those end guns. Right now, I'm just going to extrude out this edge loop here. And I'm going to use my scale tool to shape it exactly how I want it. Alright. And when I look at my source image again, so it's kind of thick at the bottom, right? And it points upwards. So let's try to mimic that shape here. Alright, we'll get as close as we can with the geometry that we're working with. Alright. And I'm just going to start extruding my edges up to match that spout shape that we saw in the source image. Like so. I think it might even come back a little bit. That's what we look like in low poly mode, and this is what we look like in sub D mode. And now we get a nice little spout just by using our slice multi-cut tool and extruding some edges. And I'm going to come in and finish off this lip here. Give it some mass. Bring it down. Push it in a little bit. And I'll worry about that hole a little bit later. But for right now, I got a decent little spout. You know what? It's a little bit thicker down there, isn't it? So why don't I take this moment now to introduce the slide edge tool. What we're going to do is I'm going to insert a few more edge loops here so I can get exactly the shape that I want. I'll make that a little bit bigger. Ooh, giving it that nice bottom mass that we saw in the source video. Alright, slide edge tool is pretty helpful in certain situations because if I wanted to move this edge up a little bit, see how it's just really, I'm just going straight up. It's not really following the contours or the general shape. It's just really messing with the shape. So with my edge loop selected, I can hold down Shift and select. Hold down Shift. Let me rephrase. With my edge selected, I hold down Shift and right click and select my slide edge tool. Now I can drag this edge with my middle mouse button, and the shape isn't quite as messed up. I literally just slide it along the contour of my coffee pot. So it allows me to have a little bit more fine control with positioning these edges a little bit. I'm just holding down middle mouse button and just sliding it up and down like so. I'm doing the same down here. Middle mouse button, click and drag. And it's just giving me finer control of shaping my teapot here. Alright, great. I'm going to go with this spout here. Alright. I might select this edge loop right here, double click it. I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. Looking a little too oblong for me, or weird diamond looking. It's just tweaking it. Just double selecting these edge loops, and I'm just bringing them in. That looks a lot better. Alright, so we still have N-gons, and there's still, I can kind of see like these weird like bulges here. I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen, but I'm getting like this weird bulge, and I think it's because we have those N-gons working there. See how it's kind of weird shaped right there? So maybe if we fix those N-gons a little bit, it'll make it a little bit better. Alright, so next we're going to create the handle for my teapot here. And there's a few ways we can do this. We need to be able to make some holes that we can extrude our handle out of on the top and bottom here. And there's a quick little tool we can use called the connect edge, or the connect tool. It's not connect edge, it's just literally connect. And we can find it by going to our Edit Mesh or Modeling Toolkit toolbar, and there's our Connect tool right here. Or we can go to Mesh Tools and select Connect. So what this basically does is we can select faces, and notice how we get edges drawn. So we got an edge drawn in the middle, exact middle of this right here, then the exact middle right there and right there. I press enter, and now I have a little diamond that kind of turns circular when I'm in sub D mode by pressing 3 on the keyboard. And I can even go down here and go to connect, and I have a little diamond there. Look what happens though when you're just selecting random things on your teapot. That's a little bit bigger, isn't it? Or you can just really kind of go crazy. Whoa. Okay. Ngons, it's not making me, it's not letting the connect tool keep connecting. So that's bad. So we have to kind of go up here. And see how we're just creating these, it's almost like creating a little edge loop based on, oh, Ngons. Now I've just created this little edge loop by selecting faces. So connect tool is pretty neat. But right now I'm just using the connect tool right here. Let me undo that. So just to draw these little diamonds here that I'm going to use to extrude out my handle. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these faces here. Delete them. Alright, so I'm going to select both of these little diamonds here now. And I'm about to show you a new tool called Bridge that'll create these nice little bridges that connect holes like this. But first I'm going to start out by just extruding the handle here and maybe make them a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to use the Bridge tool to bridge these two holes and literally make a bridge of faces here. Alright, let me go back into Edge mode. And I can get to Bridge tool by going to my modeling toolkit. I can even hold down shift and right click, and there's bridge right there below add divisions. Or I can go to mesh tools or edit mesh, and there it is, bridge right there. So I click it, and that looks hideous. What is going on here? Well, our poly bridge tool little menu comes up here. If we change the curve type to something like maybe blend, whoa, that's starting to look a little bit better, huh? It's not quite giving us the look we want. So maybe we need a course to act a little bit better. So with these edges I've extruded, I'm going to come in and kind of position them and rotate them just a little bit better so that my bridge tool can bridge a little bit more naturally. So there I just right click, hold shift, right click, select bridge. And then this curve type linear, it's not doing it for us, so I'm going to click that. I'm going to go into blend, taper will kind of help us adjust our thickness. So we can even make our new handle a little bit thinner right there. And if we press 3 on the keyboard, we get a nice little handle there, like so. And I just want to make a note that I could make these shapes look a little bit better, but I'm trying to just use the tools when introducing. So working with them under the limitations of the tools a little bit, but it's not going to keep me from coming in and double clicking the base of this handle right here, the edge loop around it, all the way around it. Notice I have those edges selected. It's not going to stop me from selecting these edges and shoving them around and scaling them so they look a little bit better. Alright, and if we look at my source image, we kind of see that it looks like an ear and not like just a straight, you know, arc. So we can even select these edges and start really pushing around the shape of this handle here. I'm even going to scale it down a little bit. But that bridge tool really allowed us to start making this nice little arc that we're working with now. And that's something closer than what we were wanting to see from our source image. Great. And that's pretty good. We're starting to get a little teapot going on now. That's really good. All right. So we've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about deleting edges. We've talked about the connect tool that allows us to select faces. So our edge loops can be drawn with the faces we select. Multi-cut tool was pretty big. So let's talk about two more things right now. And that's going to be the append to polygon tool. We're going to use the append to polygon tool to close up these gaps here. So I'm going to zoom in on this bottom little gap on my teapot here. I'm going to go to mesh tools, and there's append to polygon. I can also hold down shift right click, append to polygon, nestled right next to extrude, multi-cut, all that good stuff. So when I select append to polygon tool, my cursor turns to a crosshair, and this border edge gets like this hole, the border edge on this hole, it gets thicker, right? It turns to a thicker green. What I can do now is I can select an edge right there, and then I can select another edge, and a face gets drawn right between them. And if I press G on my keyboard, G is in, I don't know, group. Well, that doesn't look good. I'm going to go into one mode there. There we go. I can keep making these faces here by pressing G. It'll bring up the tool again. There we go. Append to polygon to close up that triangle. There we go. And I'm just pressing G to confirm the append to polygon tool to draw that face. Uh-oh, what happened there? Well, I didn't exactly click the edge. So if that happens, just press Control Z to undo that. There we go. You can even press Enter to terminate it, but then I have to go back and select append to polygon tool. So what G on the keyboard does is it finalizes that face being made, and it brings up my append to polygon tool again so I can work a little bit faster. Alright, so no more, basically no more, hole there. And we even have a better looking bottom here. It's not just a bunch of triangles terminating on each other. And it even smooths out to be a lot better there. Oh my god, look what that N-gon's doing right there though. It's creating like this little ridge at the bottom here. So we'll go back and fix that in a second. Alright, we can use the append polygon tool to do the same thing up here. Boom, 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 boom. Well, that didn't work out too good. I'm going to select that bottom edge right there and append it to there, so I get a little trapezoid. And you can work pretty fast with this by plugging up holes this way. There we go. Alright, let's use the multi-cut tool to fix these N-gons. I know there's N-gons. I think I see one right there, but how exactly do I know if I have an N-gon? Well, there's a tool in Mesh called Cleanup. It's under the Optimize section. If I press Cleanup, I get all these new options right here. Let me expand this. All these new options here. I'm going to show you guys how we can select every single N-gon in your model so you know where to fix it. Alright? First of all, the operation we want to do when we press Apply or Clean Up, we don't want Maya to automatically clean up or fix these N-gons. We want to be able to fix them ourselves. We just want Maya to select the matching polygons so we know which ones we can fix. And then Fix by Tessellation here. Look, it has an option for faces with more than 4 sides. So with that checked and select matching polygons selected, these are the two options you want to be able to select. And we hit apply. Look, it selects every single N-gon in our model. So that is what we have to fix. Okay? So we're going to use the multi-cut tool to help us do that. Alright, I'm going to select my tea kettle or teapot here. I'm going to select my multi-cut tool right here. And here's another cool little function of the multi-cut tool. It has the ability to insert an edge loop. I'm holding down Control on the keyboard, and it automatically, I'm not even clicking anything, but it creates this perfect little edge loop here. And if I hit left click, it draws it in. See how we have this edge loop right here? Now I can go in and fix this end gun because I have some extra geometry to work with. Press enter. Boom. End gun is gone. I can even come up here to do the same thing. End gun is gone. Let's do it to the same side over here. I have this gross end gun right here. Hold down Control, click, boom, boom, fixed end gun, boom, boom, fixed end gun. But you'll notice this edge loop that I made isn't exactly even with that one. So now I'm kind of getting a lopsided kettle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge loop, this new edge loop I made to fix my end guns. And I'm going to hold down W. And I'm going to hold down the V key. Notice how we get a snap to vertex. And I'm going to pull this edge loop up, and I'm going to match it to the vertices of that new edge loop over here. That way, the new edge loop I made on the right side of my kettle will match the edge loop I made on the left side. So all I did was double click this new edge loop I made, hold down the V key to snap the vertice, pulled it straight up, and notice how it's just snapping to all these different verts. Well, I'm going to hover over a vertice of the edge loop I'm trying to get the exact height of, and now they're sitting pretty, sitting on the exact same level there. I can even go in and expand it a little bit, scale it up so I make an even more spherical shape. Alright, so I'm going to do this one more time on the bottom of my tea kettle so you guys can get an idea of how I can fix my end guns using the multi-cut tool. Really important, really awesome tool here. So there's my end gun right here, 5 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold down Control to make this edge loop tool, and then I'm just going to simply click that to there. And notice how we have a quad and a quad. Press enter, and then go from here maybe down to there. Quad and a quad. Now I have to make a new edge loop on this side, and I'm going to try to get it as lined up as possible to this edge loop I just made. There I go. Boom to boom. There's a new quad. There's a new quad. And boom to boom. 2 new quads. And I'm going to go ahead and match the height of this edge loop to that edge loop. So I'm going to select one of them. Well, that's no good. It's messing with the bottom of my tea kettle right there. So I'm just going to deselect that edge. I'm going to let it be. And I'm going to deselect that one. I'm just going to worry about this edge loop. I don't want this vertex to be moved. Just this edge loop right there. Nice. I preserve the edge loops. I select both edge loops on either side now. And topology is looking good. Alright guys, before we end this video, I'm going to show you guys what normal angles do for us here. Alright, so normals, yeah, it's a loaded topic because we have all these weird creases on the top of my tea kettle right now. But yet, this is smooth. I mean, here's a weird crease. There's some weird creases. That's all because our edge normals are hardened right here, and they're softened right here. So look what happens whenever I select this edge loop right here. This is that hard edge loop I was talking about. It was a really contrast between dark light and bright light right here. There's no ease. It's just a straight up contrast. Our edge normals control that. So if I select this edge loop and go to mesh display and soften that edge, let me go in it. It's gone. In fact, if I select my whole tea kettle and go to mesh display, soften edge, well, some parts look good, but some parts look really bad right there. It's all about how we soften and harden our edges here. And in low poly models like this one right here, if there's not enough geometry to really describe how that edge light bends over this edge, like it's really sharp, this edge is really sharp, then we start getting these weird black artifacts there. Well, there's a way we can maybe control that. If we go to set normal angle, then every edge that has a 60-degree angle, meaning here's an edge, here are the two faces connected to that edge, and then the angle between these two faces according to this edge. So there's an edge angle right there. Any face between these values here, and 60 is a good one. Any angle less than 60 degrees stays hard. I think any angle above 60 degrees gets softened. So let's do that. We'll hit apply, and we'll see what happens. Edges like this that are really acute, really sharp, stay hard, but the more obtuse angles, like down the body of this tea kettle, they get soft. So it's a little bit of a compromise. We have the hard angles at the really hard angles, so really hard edges, and then we get a nice contrast of the soft one. So setting your normal edge kind of makes the judgment call. So now we don't have all those black artifacts going on, but yet we still have some of these hard angles. But if we press 3 on the keyboard, we get subdivided, and we have enough geometry where light can nicely fall across it. And all I'm doing when I'm pressing 3 on the keyboard is going to mesh and hitting smooth a few times. Twice, in fact. So if I hit smooth twice, all my geometry gets subdivided, and it's permanent this way. If I press 1 on the keyboard, it doesn't matter. In fact, I'm pressing 1 and 3 now. Too late. We've already subdivided it for good. So that's why you don't really want to smooth your meshes too much. You just want to hop between 1 and 3 on your keyboard. Same effect. But you can go back into the low poly and start really whittling out those larger shapes on here. Like so. Okay, great. So for the next assignment, you guys are going to be building a house. And you might have already built one in the past, but we're going to use our edge tools to create a nice house right here. And I'm going to take a little break in this video. I'm going to pause it, and I'll be right back, and we'll get started. I'll do a quick, no longer than hopefully 15 or so minutes. I'll do a quick little walkthrough on how we can get some of these shapes using our edge tools. In particular, roofs like this can be sometimes be a nuisance. I'll show you how we can make some really nice roofs. So for this assignment, I want you to pick a house. I want you to include the reference image when you turn it in, and you're going to model your house as close to your reference image as possible. And I'm going to do that for you guys right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a brand new scene here. I've already made my tea kettle. You guys can follow along and make that too if you want. But we're going to start a house. And I'm going to keep it basic, keep it fast, just to show you guys basic workflow for doing this. Alright, so I'm going to bring up my reference image. So the defining characteristics of this house is we have a foundation right here, the gray brick. We have a nice little porch. with 2 stairways with 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 or 5 steps on each side. And we have a single slant roof. It's not a pyramid at the top. It's like a V shape. And then we have this extra little porch roof extruding out from it. So we're going to break this down into a few different main large bodies. We're going to start by making the foundation. Then we're going to make our brick wall. Then we're going to come out and make this little porch right here. That'll give us the basis for how we need to make our porch roof. So after we make our porch, we're going to come in and we're going to try to tackle how to build this roof. Maybe add the chimney and the columns and add a few windows and doors here. Hopefully that won't take us too long. So let's get started. Alright, I'm going to keep popping back and forth between that right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Windows, Settings and Preferences. I'm going to Settings, and I'm going to change my units to foot because I'm comfortable with working to feet. It'll help create a nice little bit of scale here. Alright, that's great. So Windows, Settings and Preferences, Settings, foot. Just going through that real quick. Hopefully you guys have already been there. I'm going to bring up my channel box here. And I don't know exactly how big this house is. But let's say it's about, maybe it's a little bit longer than it is deep. So let's create a cube, and this is going to be my foundation. And I'm going to, let's see, Z, the blue arrow is facing front. So I want my X to be a little bit longer than my Z. So I'm going to scale my X to be about 40 feet and my Z to be about 30 feet. Alright. So there is the foundation of my house. And let's say my foundation is 2 feet off the ground. Alright. There's my foundation. So I'm going to bring up my outliner. Apparently I just made a NURB circle. Not very good. So let's undo that. So I'm going to, and we're going to do that again real fast. We're going to go to polygons this time instead of NURBs. I'm going to create a cube. I'm going to make it 40 by 2 feet tall by 30 feet deep. And we're going to call this foundation mesh 1. And I want you guys to be really careful with this stuff because you're going to be working with this house in the future. You're going to be texturing it, and you're also going to be building an interior to this house. So having a clean outliner and some layers will help you manage the outside and inside of your house so you can texture it later on. So I'm going to create a layer from selected. Let's call this found layer for foundation. And let's just lock it up. I'm not going to freeze these real quick because I can refer back to the dimensions of my house and my outliner right there. 40 feet by 30 feet. And the next thing I'm going to do is, you know what? I'm going to duplicate my foundation, and I'm going to call this walls. And I'm going to create my walls out of this foundation. Like so. I'm going to remove it from the layer I just made. Alright. And I'm going to delete the top and bottom because I just want the walls here. And I'm going to scale it in slightly so it's sitting right on top of my foundation. And I'm going to select this edge loop here and I'm going to bring it up. Alright, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it like so. So if that's 2 feet and then maybe that's like that, I think that's about the height I want. Alright. Perfect. Alright. I am going to freeze the transformations on this. I'll go to Modify, Freeze, Modify, and I'll do a center pivot here. Alright. I've called them the wrong thing. Let me switch the names right there. Alright, just cleaning up my outliner so that everything's named correctly. So here are my walls. I want to make a new layer just for my walls. Walls layer. Alright. So why don't I go ahead and create my porch right here. Alright, let me bring up Maya again. So I'm going to create a new cube. Bring it out like so. And let's say porch is also going to be about 2 feet tall. And I'm just going to eye it like so. I don't want to I'm not going to bust people for being, you know, too bad. And I'm just scaling this thing like so. And I'm just using a lot of floating geometry. In fact, I might make it a little bit taller so it's a little bit above the foundation there. Alright. And one defining feature of this porch is it has a little lip like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create and insert an edge loop here like so. So now all I have to do is select the faces, and I can just extrude them out like so. And that creates that little lip we saw. Alright. You know what? That lip actually rests above the foundation. So I'm going to go in and raise this up. And now my foundation's too small, or my porch is too small, so I want to bring that face down like so. And there is my porch. And you know what? I don't think that comes out far enough. So I'm going to bring this in, and I'm just going to scale it. And there is my porch. So I'm going to go to my outliner, Windows, Outliner, call this porch, mesh 1. I want to create a layer from selected. And this porch layer is going to contain the columns and the porch itself. Alright. And then I can just lock everything down. Let me put this foundation back where it goes. Foundation. You know what? I'm going to make a plane real quick as like a ground layer, just so I can get an idea of where my ground is instead of it being just randomly, my house randomly floating in space. Alright, I'm going to just put it right there, have it kind of floating. Once again, add, with my ground selected, right click my new layer, add selected, double click my layer name, call this ground lay, like so. Everything's starting to come along. Now why don't we get started on our roof here. Okay, how are we going to tackle this? I guess I'm going to make a another cube here, but instead of starting from scratch, I'm going to duplicate the foundation one more time. But this time I'm going to call this roof mesh 001. But you'll notice that duplicated foundation is also stored in my foundation layer. So with my new roof selected, I have to unlock it. I'm going to select my foundation layer, remove selected objects. So now my new roof isn't in my foundation layer anymore. And it's perfect because it's already the right dimensions and it already kind of overhangs my walls, just like in the picture here. And I'm going to go ahead and just bring this guy up. Alright. So we have kind of an A-frame going on here, kind of an A shape. So I'm going to select this top face and scale it in. Kind of leave a little bit of mass there because the top of the house. And zoom in a little bit so I can get a better. Top of the house isn't exactly sharp right there. Now how tall does this need to be? That might be a little tall for what I want. I think that's looking pretty good. And I'm going to actually kind of rotate the perspective of my camera to match the perspective of my house so I can just get a better eye for it. Alright, cool. So what I need to do now is I need to figure out how to extrude. I have the vinyl plate, the vinyl siding, and the actual roof part. I need to be able to extrude this part out like so. Alright. What if I how are we going to do this? Let's see. Well, the first thing we can see is the vinyl siding that I've made. The roof doesn't start till maybe like a foot beyond it. So I'm going to insert an edge loop around my roof right there. And notice how I'm already getting clipping because I didn't take that into account. And I think I made that edge loop too tall. So I'm going to select, go to edge loop, edge mode, select this new edge loop, hold down shift right click and slide this edge so I can slide it down a little bit more without affecting the shape. I'm going to bring it out like so. And to get it exactly, I'm going to select this new edge right here, go to W, hold down V for vertex snap. I'm going to snap it to the bottom vert right there so this line is straight up and down. Because before, if I look at it straight on, before I think it was kind of like this, but if I hold down the V for vertex and snap it to the right, according to this little vertex edge right there, it's perfect. Yeah, notice how it's not completely straight up and down. I'll do the same over here. Alright, so now we have this part made. Now we need to kind of extrude this roof out a little bit. So I'm going to select the top faces here. And I'm going to do a little bit of an extrusion. There we go. There we go. Now we're kind of getting a little bit of a thickness going on here. And I'm even going to take this edge right here, snap it so it's right in line. So notice how it was an angle here. I'll hold down V key for vertex snap and just hold down my vertical handle here, my Y-axis handle, and just snap it right down so it's flush right there. I'll do the same over here. Maybe bring it out a little bit. Alright. And then what I can do here to create this little overhang, see how it kind of overhangs the side of my vinyl right there? I'll just select this little loop right here, this little V. I'll do an extrude. I'll do both sides at once, and I'll bring them both out. And now I have a nice extrusion. And I'm going to do shading, wireframe on shaded, so you guys get a better idea of my topology going on right now. That's a nice little tool there. But we forgot one thing. We forgot to bring out this front part here. So how are we going to do this? Have we already messed up, or have we already gone too far? And in fact, I think I didn't make this bottom part. I don't think this this face right here, I don't think that's long enough. So I'm going to hide my walls. Select this face and bring it down just a little bit more. Being able to hide my walls is really important there, because now I can select just that face. Alright. So now I need to bring out this little porch area right here. And the thing about this porch area is it covers the exact width. This porch awning covers the exact width, and it extends straight out from my roof here. So what I need to do is I need to kind of create a center point here. I don't know how to do that. I don't know the exact center of this roof here. Well, if I go to my multi-cut tool, if I hold down Shift on my keyboard, multi-cut can find the exact center of an edge. So I'll click there, I'll click there. I'll hide my walls. And with shift, I'll hide everything except my, so now I can see just my roof here. With shift being held down, this little black dot here is telling me the exact, oh, messed up right there. I'll hit the backspace. This little black dot is showing me the exact midpoint. Let me zoom in a little bit more. There we go. So I know I'm getting an edge loop on the exact center of my house. Perfect. Now I just need to maybe do a multi-cut and bring out the shape a little bit. So I'll go to edge, or actually I'll go to multi-cut, and I'll do it from the center there again, maybe to the center. I'm just holding down shift. That's what it's allowing me to get all these exact centers. Zoom in so I can get that. And then, so I got one side made. Now I can just come to the center on the other side. That's a little buggy. Let me zoom out just enough. There we go. I guess it depends on how much you're zoomed out. There we go. So now I have the shape of this roof ready to be extruded out. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to select all the faces going on over here. Delete those bottom faces, I don't need them. Do an extrude face. And just, oh, that's not good. Thickness is making my faces go extremely crazy. So I'm going to extrude these one at a time. I'm changing my mind there. So I'm going to extrude just these faces on this side. You'll notice it's flat right there, so I need to make this flat somehow. Well, I guess I could do something like that, maybe. Kind of scale them together. What I did was I just went to my scale tool and I scaled it like so. Alright. We're running into an issue already with this method. Can anybody tell me what it might be? I think, are we getting overlapping faces anywhere? There's that face. Nope, it's looking pretty good actually. So I'm going to bring this edge, instead of just scaling it. That's not what I want. Hard to do this without using a vertex tool real quick. So I'm going to cheat real quick. I'm going to go down the right click and go to vertex. I'm going to select the single vertex right here. And I'm going to hold down the V key and snap it to the front face right there on that one. And now we get that front little awning view on that side. We can do the same thing here. Extrude. Get that same little awning deal going on. And we can adjust how much they come out in a second. And you know what? Maybe this side of the house doesn't even have. Yeah, that side of the house, who's to say it doesn't have it? So I'm going to just leave it alone for time's sake here. What I am going to do is I'm going to select these edges here to bring out that, oh, that's not working. I wanted to bring out that detail here. So if I select these edges and then deselect all the other edges connected to this slant of the roof, Then I can bring this out like so. And what have I done? Dear Lord, I've extruded the wrong awning. That's okay. What we'll do is we'll cheat, because I like cheating. We'll just bring this guy over to this side, and we'll rotate him 180 degrees in the channel box. Alright, so I still feel like I need to bring out this roof. So I'll select just those front edges there so I can bring them out. And it's getting closer. Looking pretty decent. I'm not going to go into too much detail with the guttering and the moldings here. You guys can. I might actually try to get this little molding part made. So if I extrude in like this. I think what I'll do to kind of get this overhang working, I'll just select the front faces here, even the underside ones maybe. Oh, you selected it. I'll do another extrusion, and I'm just going to scale them in a little bit. And then I can take these and just scale them out. And there we go. Kind of get this flat. I'm going to flatten that out a little bit. I'm just using vertex and grid snap. So what I did over there was I selected these edges, these three edges that were slanted. I held X on the keyboard for grid snap, snapped them. And if you're not getting the same kind of behavior, double click your move tool right here and go to move snap settings and make sure retain component spacing is turned off. So that way when you snap, all your points kind of line up with that grid and they don't keep that weird shape. Because if I kept that retain component spacing checked on and tried to snap, see how it keeps that slant? That's the magic ticket right there that flattens it out. There we go. And you know what? Maybe I need to bring down this edge. So I'm going to select that edge right there. And vertex snap it to those right there so they're level. And there we go. I've created that nice little overhang there. Not the exact geometry, but we're suggesting it. You know, this is still kind of a early on in the semester, keeping it somewhat simple. So really all I have to do now is make some steps and some columns. Alright, so how do I create these steps? I'm going to make it its own object here. And we're just going to float that right in on there. And how are we going to do this? We're going to use our insert edge loop tool to make some steps. But you know what? Is that the best way to do it? They seem really uneven. I think we can use the add divisions tool. Let's see if we can add divisions. I don't want to just add any old regular divisions. I want to bring up my extra little window and go linearly. Hit apply. It's obviously in the wrong direction, so I can go in the V direction. And I'm going to create, this is allow me to space out these steps just so. Alright. Looks like I've created an end-gon of sorts. You know what? We can fix that though. I want to scale it so it's not so. So we've created some end-gons, but you know what? Now we have the tools to fix it. I can go to my multi-cut tool. and just complete those edge loops. No more end gun, and we have exactly spaced edge loops, because now we're going to extrude out all those faces and make evenly spaced, evenly divided steps. So to do that, we'll select the bottom 3 faces here. We'll leave that top one alone. We'll extrude, pull out, extrude, pull out. Oh, what happened there? Oh, we have to deselect that face. So I undid that first extrusion. Pull it out there. Deselect that face, and now all we're doing is pulling out that very bottom face. And that's a quick way to make some steps. You know what? We're going to get rid of these edge loops up at the top because they're just creating n-gons, and then we don't really need them. So how do we delete edges? Well, I'm going to select multiple edges here, and I think I have these on the bottom to take care of. We're going to hold down Shift, right click, delete edge. No more n-gons, and we can just nestle. Actually, I'm going to scale it up just a little bit. Just going to float it just so. Looks like those steps are a little bit more narrow than I originally thought. There we go. And I'm just going to duplicate these steps, rotate them negative 90 degrees it looks like, and place them on the side of my porch over here as well. You know, so we're getting there. You know what? I think these steps actually fit underneath this little lip right there. So let me fix that. There we go. Scale it up a little bit more. Alright, now my house is coming along. These columns looks like they're just square columns. Before I start on that, I'm going to call this stairs mesh 1, stair mesh 2. I misspelled that first stair, so I'm just going to copy and paste. Let me just redo it. There we go. So I'm going to select these stairs and parent them underneath my porch still, like so. And it's looking good so far. I'm going to skip making the columns in this video. We made columns in the face videos, so you should be able to make those pretty well. But windows and whatnot, I'm not going to require, if your windows go inset, I'm not going to require that you go in and you know, make them inset. Of course you can by just doing some edge loop. You know what? I'm going to get rid of everything but my walls here. Heck, I don't have a roof layer. I'm going to select my roof, layers, create layer from selected, and call this roof lay, and hide it. Now I can look at just my walls. And if you want to do some inset windows, you can do it like this. I can look at the very bottom of my windows right here. Let's see. I want to make an insert an edge loop tool right there. And let's say these are the tops of my windows. And I have a kind of a wide window here. I'm going to bring up my porch so I can get a reference point. So it looks like I have windows that start right there and right there. So I'm going to take this newly made square and I'm going to extrude it in. And there you can get some abscessed windows going on. See how they go straight in? And then you can build you can delete it if you want to and build in the window in it. I'm going to do one window, and the same principle will apply for doors as well. And I'm just going to create a new cube, and we're just going to create a window, some window framing. And I'm not going to float my geometry though. I'm going to make a window out of one single cube here. It'll be pretty easy. So I'm going to extrude this face upwards, like so. You know what, I think that might be too thick. I'm going to make it a little bit thinner. And then at the bottom of this cube, I'm going to extrude this face all the way over here. Then I want to insert an edge loop right there, kind of eyeball it. Pull the face straight up, like so. And then we're going to use our bridge tool in a second to bridge the top part of here. But before we do that, why don't we insert an edge loop right there, and insert an edge loop right there. There's no way to know if they're the exact same height, but we can make it the same height if we snap them. So with this edge loop selected, I'm going to leave the other one alone. I'm going to hold down the V key and grab my vertical axis thing, axis handle. It's a little late, sorry. And I'm going to snap it to that vertice of that edge loop, and now these two loops are the exact same height right here. I'll select that face, delete them, and then we're just going to select these edge loops, both edge loops right here. Go to Edit Mesh, Bridge, up too many divisions. We don't want any divisions. And there we go. And there's a nice little window frame made out of a single component using extrusions and snapping edge loops so they're the same height, and using the bridge tool. So now I can bring my window out, and it is one solid mesh with no floating geometry. Alright, I'm going to shove it back in there. How do these windows work? So there's my molding on the outside. I can create, and you know what, I'm just going to keep using this shape over and over again. I'm going to keep repurposing it, because I'm going to create this bottom one right here, and I'm just going to select, I'm going to hide my walls. Let's see, there we go. I just want to select the edges on this bottom window right here, like so. So I made sure I was in I went to my modeling toolkit and I made sure I was in not multi-component but just edge mode here. That allowed me just to select the edges on this model right here. And here I am adjusting the width of that window. So I start by selecting this edge loop right here, but it selects all these different edges right here. So hold down Control to deselect. And now I have an inside molding that I can scale, like so. Maybe bring it up a little bit, and I can duplicate it. Looks like they both need to be a little bit bigger to really cover the width of this. And I can push this out a little bit. But both of these frames need to be inside of this molding. So I'll push it in just a little bit. And there's my window. Actually, let me bring this up a little bit. This thickness isn't quite right on this one, bottom one right here. So I'm going to grab this top face, just that face. You see how it was too thin? Now I'm just going to bring it up. And actually, I need to select these two faces too, so I'll just do an edge grow. Now I got too many faces selected, so I'll do an it's a lot of different steps here, but it allows me, if you're quick enough, it allows you to select the exact faces you want. And I'm just going to scale that up. And it's really just kind of eyeballing it. Alright, so let me show everything. So see how layers are really helpful? I was able to isolate all these different parts of this house. I'll turn wireframe on, shade it off. And look, I have a nice inset window, just like we have on the side of my house here. I got the molding, and then I got the frames of the window itself. And whenever I do my interior, I'm even set up to start worrying about, being able to see out of the windows inside of my house. Alright, so that'll do it for this video. You can use the same techniques for this window as for the doors and all the other windows in your house. The key concepts I wanted to get across was, oh yeah, probably need to tidy this little guy up here. I'm not going to name each of these individual cubes, but I am going to group them all together by pressing Control G in the outliner and calling this window group 001. So now I can duplicate that across my house as I see fit. Alright, so let me go ahead and actually make a new layer for the windows as well. We'll call this Windows Lay. And those are the basic principles of making a house. Hopefully you guys can find a nice reference image and be able to emulate the basic shapes of your house as well, making your windows one complete mesh where, as possible. Of course, I still have floating geometry with these frames inside the molding, so there's a little bit of wiggle room there. But making good geometry, basically, I don't want to see just floating geometry that doesn't make sense in a logical sense. Like this frame, this molding that I have selected, it's probably going to be flush and not be made out of like floating pieces of wood, right? But yet these frames inside kind of just nestle up and float inside of here. You really can't tell the physical difference in that. So it's a judgment call there. Alright, so for your next assignment, you're going to be making a house. Find a nice reference image like I have. Something kind of simple. If you want to challenge yourself, have at it. But make sure you can capture the essence of the house. Don't worry about texturing, but do worry about clean geometry and a clean outliner and layers to help you really hone in on, making just those windows like that, focusing just on those windows. Really helpful. Alright, clean geometry is going to be important because you will be texturing this later on. So laying out those UVs will be a lot less hassle if you don't have to worry about overlapping faces or n-gons or anything like that. Alright, thanks guys, and good luck on your house.